Welcome, everyone. My name is Erik Cave. I'm the Director of Next Gen Ministries for the Pacific Northwest Conference. And today I am joined by two friends, Pastor Ted Yuen and Nancy Jo from McMinnville Covenant Church. They are in the middle of celebrating a 50-year anniversary. And we'll get to that in just a second. But first, I'd like you to introduce yourselves and tell us, what are your roles at the church and some of your history with MacCov?
Okay, I'm Nancy Jo, and I have been with this church since the beginning. So I'm a founding member, and that's why I was invited on this conversation. There is really founding members. I've been part of the church since the beginning, but I'm also a former missionary with the Covenant Church, which means that for a lot of this church's 50 years, I was away. So I would come back every year and do that.
Yeah, well, thank you for the invitation to be here. Hello, conference. And it's fun to do this with Nancy Jo, my friend. So I'm the new kid here. I've only been at the church for 20 years. Started in 2005 as the worship pastor, and then co-pastored for 10 years with Mark Carlson. And then I was asked to become the lead pastor in 2019. So yeah, I've had a good couple decades here. And it's a wonderful community. We're excited to celebrate 50 years.
50 years is a major milestone. I am happy that I got the privilege to be a part of the celebration. I'm getting to speak on Pentecost Sunday.
Yeah.
You got a lot going into this celebration. Tell us about what you've done already and what's coming up and your plans to celebrate.
So yeah, 50 felt like such a significant milestone that we wanted to spread it out over the year. So we have three kind of anchor weekends throughout our 50th year to celebrate. We kicked off on Pentecost Sunday, May 19th. We brought in a great preacher named Erik Cave in the morning. And then that evening, we actually hosted 8 other churches from McMinnville for a combined Pentecost worship service. And that was really meaningful to have the Church of McMinnville, or a good cross-section of it, together worshiping. And they actually prayed for our church, which was really meaningful. And so it was neat to celebrate with the broader community here in Mac. And then July 13th, we're actually doing a food truck party. Food trucks are big here in the Portland area. We've got several here in McMinnville. So we're going to have a food truck party in our parking lot for the whole community. We're going to have live music and just going to have a good time and celebrate with good food. Everyone's invited to the food truck party, by the way. So that's Saturday, July 13th, 4 to 7 p.m. right here in our parking lot. And then Superintendent Greg E is going to preach on July 14th. And then in October, we're doing a little bit more formal sit-down dinner in early October. So we're going to eat together. Jelani Greenwich is going to do a comedy set after dinner, which will be a lot of fun. And President Tammy will be here to preach on October 6th. So we're very honored to have her at that time.
So as you look back on 50 years of ministry, pick a few highlights.
Okay, I'll start off with this. The idea that we've come this far in 50 years, and I was sharing with Ted that it's been years of ups and downs too. Too often we focus on the highs and forget that the lows are times to celebrate too. It's about how in the United States we're all linear, the Western world, and in other cultures they're circular. And so I think some of the highlights are some of the lower points in our life that are there and exciting. For me personally, it's been this church is my foundation to go into missions with Covenant. They backed me in graduate school and at my year at North Park, and they've supported me as I've come and gone. And so those 50 years is also formative years for me.
But God is always drawing us closer to the center. God's been generous and good to us. So I think about 50 years, I think about how this church was started as a small group of people from different backgrounds who desired to gather together to study, share life, to pray. And that was the DNA. They weren't even thinking of becoming a church. That was in 1973. And I think that DNA has carried carried on over the decades, and that's still the hallmark of this church, really, of sharing life together, deeply supportive relationships centered around Christ. And I think that's continued to be the hallmark of this church. I think a commitment to children and youth has continued over the years. We just had our VBS last week. Got to minister to 60 kids here in our building. That was really a joy. And then I also think of partnerships. I think of partnerships in our community. It's really been a privilege to join with other churches around us to try to live out the gospel together. Been able to help respond to emergency housing needs. We're able to join with other believers to start a free medical clinic, kind of provide meals to those in need in our community. So just in a variety of ways, we've been able to join with other believers to try to live out the gospel and meet real needs in our community. So I think that's really been a highlight for us over the 50 years.
How has this celebration been impacting your church and your community like right now?
It's a little bit early to tell since we're just getting into it, but I think it's definitely causing us to reflect on God's goodness and generosity. We certainly ebb and flow, but God has been good, and we want to center God as the central character in this story, because that's just the truth. So I think it's leading us into reflection. We're actually going to do a 50-year examine together as a church.
Wow.
This month. Some of you are familiar with examine prayer. But we're going to do that, reflecting back over 50 years and just reflect on what the gifts of the 50 years have been, where God has been present, where God is leading us into the future. So it's causing us to reflect, to be grateful, and also to pray. One thing I'm really excited about is we just redesigned our chapel to be a more intentional prayer room, prayer space. It was always designed for prayer, but we've just made it a more inviting and attractive space. And I think that's really critical for this, that we're seeking God for this period and seeking God for what's next in the next 50 years.
Yeah, speaking of, like, what are you looking forward to now that you're celebrating 50 years? You can't help but turn and look towards the next 50 years. What are some things that you're looking forward to?
I guess for me, I don't think I'm going to be here in another 50 years.
Me neither.
Hopefully. Anyway, I think for me, it's just the heart to follow God, that we be a church that meets this community and people's lives, and that we stay close to God, because to me, I guess I say the ups and downs, it's always about resonating and staying close within the heart of God and sharing that with people. In the next 50 years, I hope we just keep getting deeper and deeper into God and open to our community to serve them.
I think I would add, as we're celebrating this 50th year, we've been reflecting on the idea of Jubilee, this biblical concept from Leviticus 25 and Luke 4, of this radical idea of the year of Jubilee and this expression of God's kingdom. We've been pondering kind of 4 things. So the first regarding Jubilee is to remember that everything belongs to the Lord. That makes me think of this property that was donated to us in the 80s. I mean, just sheer grace. The second thing is rest. Jubilee was designed to be this super Sabbath. It wasn't about being productive. It was about pulling back, remembering God's goodness, trusting God for the provision, for the present and the future. So we're pondering that. What does that mean to enter into rest this year? Be grateful for what God has done and to trust God for the future. And then also realigning our mission with Jesus. Jesus said that he came to fulfill the year of Jubilee. So what does that look like for us? What does that mean for us and how we relate with each other? So I'm intrigued and just been pondering this idea of what a generational reset might look like for us. I mean, this idea of Jubilee was so radical, there's no written record that it was ever practiced fully. But it was important to Jesus, and he said he fulfilled it. So what does that mean for us today, look like for us to live debt-free and to be able to pass it on to others?
It's really, really exciting. I'm super excited for all of you and during this time celebration, but also for what God has for you coming down the road. So if people are interested in getting more information about your celebration, or maybe even in getting involved, where should they go? What should they do?
So we would love to see any or all of you at our celebrations. You can go to our website, maccov.org, and it has all the details on the homepage. I want to just shout out the conference staff. you all have been so supportive in our journey over the 50 years and even the past 12 months. So thank you, Erik. Thank you to the rest of the conference staff for all that you've done. We're really grateful for the partnership we have with you.
Well, thank you. We are grateful for our partnership with you as well, and we appreciate your church's faithfulness through the years. I hope that the rest of this anniversary celebration goes really well, and it'll be a catalyst for God to continue to use you in your church and your community in the coming year. So thank you for being here today and sharing your story with us.
Yeah.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having us.